Do you wanna know how much money I spent to race in Euronascar? Wait, what? I paid to race? Really, I don't have a salary? Well, no. 99.9% of drivers in the world pay to race. We're not like football players, unfortunately. I already made a video about that, where I explain you why drivers pay to race. If you missed it, check it out, link in the description. So, the only drivers in the world who have a salary to race are the top Formula 1 drivers, the top American Nascar and IndyCar drivers, a few official drivers from the GT and Sports Car Championships, and that's it. Oh no, wait! There are women who don't pay to race. Yeah, because reportedly in the W Series, all the drivers who are female don't pay to race. Well, it's crazy how in motorsports, the gender pay gap is the opposite. So, I wonder what feminists could say about this. Well, all the rest of the world, especially us privileged men, have to pay to race. Either the driver brings sponsors, or the driver is rich. Guess what? I was more poor, so I worked my whole life to try and find a way to race. I made a video about my story, it's called Draw My Life. If you wanna watch it, link in the description. I'm also working on a video about the cost to get to Formula 1, and that's gonna be crazy, so subscribe to the channel so you will not miss it. And in today's video, we will talk about the Euronascar. All the prices you will see are VAT excluded, so you will have to add on top the VAT, which is the 22% in Italy. Let's start with the fixed costs. The entry fee for the championship is 10,500 euros per driver, but if you pay by January, you have a special promotion, you pay only 9,000. Then you have the tires. 6 sets of tires are mandatories, because you will have to put 1 new set of tires per weekend, and you are allowed to use only 1 for qualifying race 1 and race 2. Each set of tires was 1,750 euros, so we have a total amount of 10,500 euros just for the mandatory tires. Then you have the gasoline, we used around 5,000 euros. The brakes, we used around 4,000 euros between brake pads and discs. And then you have all those materials that you replace, even if they are still working, after a specific amount of kilometers. This is done by my team, which is a top team, by precaution, in order to avoid breaking the part during the race. In total, we estimate that in one season, we spent around 11,000 euros for those materials. So for now, the total cost is 40,000 euros for one racing season. So that's all? Obviously not. Because who takes the car to the track? Who repairs the car? Who fixes the car? Who does the maintenance on the car? The team. And this is a big variable cost, because you can manage the car by yourself and put your man-hours on the car, assuming that you know what you're doing, or you can pay a team to do the job, and that depends on the agreement that you make with the team. And just to give you an idea of how many people work on every car, we have per weekend 4 people per car, which not only need to be paid, but you also have to pay the transportation, the accommodation, the food. And we have permanent people working in the garage during the year to prepare the car for the race. Obviously, those people are not working only on the car, because we do just 6 race weekends in 1 year, so they also work on other projects, but, you know, they need to get paid for that. Then you have to pay the transportations for the driver, the accommodation, the transportation of cars and materials on the truck, and they estimate they do 16,000 kilometers per year, which are around 10,000 miles. And keep in mind that, considering that I was sharing the car with another driver, because I race in the Euronascar 2, he raced in the Euronascar Pro, this cost has to be split by 2. It's reasonable to think that in a championship like the Euronascar, all this cost is around 35 to 40,000 euros per driver. So that brings the base for a season with a good team for one driver, for just one championship, to around 75 to 80,000 euros per season. I'm not counting the tests, but usually with this budget, 1 or 2 tests may be included. You can also spend less, racing with a less competitive team, but of course you'll be less competitive and it will be harder to fight for the victory. So this was the base. Then you have to add the extras, like extra sets of tires, damages. Considering that it was my first season, I decided to buy 8 extra sets of tires, which obviously I'm not allowed to use during the official sessions, but I can use them in free practice sessions. So I used those sets of tires for the test and for the practice session before the race in order to get used to the new tire. That adds up a total amount of 14,000 euros. And then we have the damages. Well, in motorsports usually, If the damage is caused by the driver has to pay. If it's caused by another driver, the driver still has to pay. But if it's caused by a technical failure, which was not caused by the driver, that damage usually needs to be paid by the team. So, for example, in Zolder the gearbox broke, and that was not my fault, but while braking I missed the gear and we had to replace the engine. So that was, we may say, 50-50. So, it depends on the deal you can find with the team. But we can say that throughout the whole season, between the engine, the gearbox and the fairings of the car, we made around 25,000 euros of damages, which is a lot because of the gearbox and the engine. So I can't do the exact calculation because some things were paid by the team, but I can tell you that the total cost of the racing season for me for the last year, for the Euronascar 2, racing at a very competitive level with 3 test days, was around 100,000 euros plus VAT. Since I didn't and I still don't have 100,000 euros in my bank account, that racing season was possible thanks to the sponsors, which I can find thanks to the leverage of my Italian channel, which is pretty big. Keep in mind one very important thing, that in this budget, I did not consider the hundreds of hours invested in the commercial relationships with sponsors, teams, job that is done by my managers, and which I cannot quantify. And I did not calculate the cost of the video production, which is probably the most expensive thing. I just can't give you an exact economic value of the video production cost, but I can give you some numbers. So for the production of 14 videos at our level, which looks like a small budget Netflix series, I can estimate a total amount of 450 hours of editing. Yeah, just for the editing. To which we have to add the shooting days, which are 40 working days of 2 people, the cameraman and myself. You can imagine the price of this. In all of this, I was not considering the talent, because if those 14 videos in the Italian channel make a total amount of 5.6 million views, it's because behind those videos there are skilled and talented people, and the skill and talent are expensive. So those numbers are worth a lot, way more than they are currently paid. So in short, to do a Euronascar series like mine, you have 2 ways. Either you're rich and you can afford 100,000 euros, or you're not, and therefore you have to find sponsors. So if you put into account the hours you have to spend to find those money, it's much better to be born rich, I can guarantee you. If you give me to choose between being rich and pay to race, or being Alberto Naska and finding sponsors to race, well, it's much easier to be rich. But what I can say is that the satisfaction of having 820,000 people following these videos in Italian, plus the other people in English, it really doesn't have a price. That's probably, along with the sports results, the biggest satisfaction of my whole life.